They buried their first leader in the spring of 1867. By the winter of 1877, 43 more had followed him into the ground. This is the true story of Granite Ridge, a frontier village where leadership was not an honor, it was a death sentence. And what these people learned about power, sacrifice, and survival will shake you to your core. I need to tell you right now, this is not a story about heroes. This is a story about ordinary people forced to make choices that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Choices between their children and their neighbors. Between mercy and survival. Between their souls and their community. Before we begin, subscribe immediately because we bring you one story like this every single week, stories that strip away everything comfortable and show you what humanity really looks like when civilization collapses. In the next 15 minutes, you are going to watch leaders rise and fall like wheat before a scythe. You are going to see a community tear itself apart and rebuild, again and again and again. You are going to witness decisions that no human being should ever have to make. And you are going to learn the one lesson about power that every history book refuses to teach, that leadership does not belong to the strong, it belongs to whoever is willing to carry the weight until it crushes them. Stay until the very end because the final leader, the one who finally broke the cycle, what they had to do to save that village will leave you silent. This is not a story about taking power. This is about what power takes from you. 43 leaders. 10 years. One impossible truth. Let's begin. Granite Ridge sat in the Montana Territory where three rivers met. 97 souls in 1867. Farmers, trappers, a blacksmith, two widows who ran the trading post. Far enough from civilization that help meant nothing. Thomas Brennan was their leader. Not elected, just naturally followed. He had been a captain in the war, knew how to organize people. Good man. Fair man. The kind of leader communities pray for. The Blackfoot came in April. Not a war party, just desperate families pushed west by starvation. They wanted to trade. Brennan welcomed them. Shared food. His decision saved 23 Blackfoot children that spring. It also doomed Granite Ridge. Because 3 weeks later, a cavalry patrol came through. Saw the Blackfoot tracks, accused Brennan of harboring hostiles. They wanted names, wanted locations. Brennan refused to betray people he had fed. The cavalry left with warnings. 2 days later, a different Blackfoot band, one that had heard about the white village that showed mercy, raided a supply wagon heading to Granite Ridge. 30% of their winter stores, gone. The village turned on Brennan. Your mercy will kill our children, they said. He had no answer. How do you weigh 23 lives you saved against 97 you might lose? He stepped down. Walked into the wilderness. Never came back. Margaret Donnelly took over. The blacksmith's widow, hard as the iron she worked. Her first act was to build a stockade. Her second was to institute rationing. 20% reduction in food. Children cried. Adults grumbled. But they survived the winter. Spring brought cattle rustlers. They hit the village herd at night. Took 40 head. Margaret organized a pursuit. Caught them in Dead Horse Canyon. She gave the order no one wanted to hear. No prisoners. No mercy. They recovered 38 cattle. They also created 4 widows and 11 orphans in the Rustler camp 20 miles south. When Margaret returned, she could not meet anyone's eyes. She lasted 3 more months as leader, then drank herself to death. James Cutler was next. School teacher. Believed in law and process. He created a council, wrote a charter, established rules for everything. 3 months of debate and documentation while crops failed because no one had clear authority to organize planting. Famine took him and 17 others that winter. Not violence. Not raiders. Just the quiet death of starvation because rules could not plant wheat and charters could not harvest corn. Leadership required more than fairness. It required results. The pattern continued. Robert Kane led for 8 months until smallpox came and his quarantine orders sparked a rebellion. Sarah Mitchell lasted 6 weeks before a grizzly killed her during a hunting party she organized. David Cross made it a full year before a land dispute turned violent. By 1872, no one wanted the job. Leadership had become synonymous with death. The village operated in chaos. Decisions made by whoever shouted loudest. Resources hoarded. Trust collapsed. They were destroying themselves faster than any enemy could. Then the Hammond brothers arrived. Marcus and Eli. They offered simple terms. We will lead. We will protect you. We will make decisions. In exchange, we take 30% of all production. Protection, they called it. It was extortion dressed in necessity. The village accepted. Desperation makes slaves of free people. For 18 months, the Hammonds ruled through fear. Beatings for disobedience. Starvation rations for complaints. They kept the village alive but treated people like livestock. A boy named Thomas, only 14, stole food for his sick mother. Marcus Hammond beat him in the village square as an example. Beat him until bones broke. Until the boy stopped moving. Until even the Hammond loyalists looked away. That night, 12 men and 4 women met in the old root cellar. They had nothing in common except rage. Farm hands. The preacher. A grandmother. They planned not rebellion but execution. Leadership through elimination. The Hammond brothers died in their sleep. 16 knives from 16 people. Everyone shared the guilt so no one could be singled out. They burned the bodies and never spoke of it again. But they had learned something terrible about themselves. They needed a new leader but now understood the cost. Whoever took the job would carry the weight of impossible decisions. Would age years in months. Would likely die from the stress, the violence, or the guilt. An old trapper named Silas Horn stepped forward. He was 63, had no family, nothing to lose. I will carry it until it kills me, he said. Then someone else will carry it. This is how we survive. Silas lasted 11 months. Made hard decisions without hesitation because he knew his life was already spent. Executed 2 rapists. Banished a thief's entire family. Ordered a sick child isolated when disease threatened the community. Each choice carved pieces from his soul. He died of a heart attack during a council meeting. Just stood up, said the weight was too much, and fell. They found a letter in his pocket. Whoever comes next, the letter said, remember that leadership is not power. It is sacrifice dressed in authority. The pattern continued but with a difference. Now leaders volunteered knowing the cost. Carried the burden for as long as they could, then passed it to the next willing soul. Rotation through sacrifice. Survival through shared suffering. By 1875, they had learned to support their leaders while they lived. Shared the burden. Made collective decisions when possible. Isolated the leader when hard choices came. Gave them love before the job killed them. A woman named Rebecca Marsh led for 14 months. Longest since the Hammond brothers. She organized a militia, negotiated with neighboring settlements, even established basic trade routes. Then typhoid came. The disease killed 31 people including Rebecca. In her final days, she trained her replacement. Taught him everything she knew. Gave him her journals of decisions and consequences. Leadership had become apprenticeship in survival. Her replacement was a 19-year-old named Jacob Worth. Too young for the job but old enough to understand the cost. He lasted 7 months before a timber accident took his legs. Survived but could no longer lead. The next 3 leaders served 2 years combined. Each died differently. 1 to infection from a simple cut, 1 to a fall from a horse, 1 to simple exhaustion, worked himself into the grave. 41 liters by the winter of 1877. Then came Elizabeth North. She was 26, a widow, mother of 2. No one expected her to volunteer. She had everything to lose. But she understood something the others had missed. Elizabeth did not try to carry the burden alone. She built a true council. Divided responsibilities. Made leaders of specialists. The blacksmith controlled resource allocation. The doctor handled health decisions. The tracker organized security. She coordinated but did not dominate. It worked. For the first time in 10 years, Granite Ridge stabilized. Crops came in strong. Defenses held. Trade expanded. Elizabeth survived her first year. Then her second. People began to hope that the curse had lifted. But in year 3, raiders came again. Not Blackfoot. Not rustlers. Deserters from the army, 30 strong, desperate and violent. They demanded half of everything. Elizabeth refused. She knew what appeasement cost. The siege lasted 4 days. The village militia, trained and organized, held. But casualties mounted. 11 dead. 23 wounded. On the 5th morning, Elizabeth made the decision no leader wants to make. She sent her 12-year-old son with a white flag to the nearest army fort. 3 days' ride. Through hostile country. Alone. The message he carried would save the village, but she might never see him again. The boy made it. The army came. The deserters scattered. But Elizabeth North aged a decade in those 3 days of not knowing if her son lived. The scars leadership leaves are not always visible. Elizabeth led for 7 more years. Longer than any leader before her. She built Granite Ridge into a proper town. Population grew to 300. But her hair went white by 40. Her hands shook constantly. Formal transfer of leadership, Elizabeth healthy but worn, successor prepared and supported, system succeeding, evolution complete. The new leader lasted 8 years. The next, 12. Leadership was still hard, still dangerous, still extracted terrible prices. But the village had learned to preserve those who led instead of consuming them. Granite Ridge still stands today. Now called Granite Falls, Montana. Population 8,000. They still maintain a memorial to the 43 leaders who died building their community. The names are carved in iron, not stone. Iron, because Elizabeth North insisted. Stone cracks and weathers, she said. But iron, forged in fire and hammered into strength, that endures. Like the people who survived. Like the lessons paid for in blood. Every year on the anniversary of Thomas Brennan's death, the town gathers at the memorial. The current mayor reads the names. All 43. Then reads Elizabeth's words, carved at the bottom of the memorial. Power is not taken, it is carried. And it leaves scars on those strong enough to bear it. Not as a warning against leadership, but as a reminder of what it costs and why it matters. The lesson Granite Ridge learned over 10 years and 43 deaths is one every community eventually faces. Leadership is not about power over others. It is about carrying weight for others. The strong do not take command. They accept burden. Those who seek power for glory will be destroyed by it. Those who accept power as duty, who understand it as sacrifice, who carry it knowing the cost, only they can lead without becoming tyrants or victims. Granite Ridge buried 43 leaders in 10 years. Each death taught the same lesson in different words. Power is not a crown to wear. It is a cross to carry. And the only people worthy of it are those who understand that bearing it will break them, but do it anyway. That is leadership. That is sacrifice. That is the price of community survival. Remember their names. Honor their scars. If this story shook something loose inside you, if you understand now what real leadership costs, then I need you to do 3 things immediately. First, hit that like button because stories about sacrifice deserve to be elevated above stories about glory. Second, subscribe and turn on all notifications because every single week we bring you one story like this that strips away the comfortable lies and shows you what humanity really looks like under pressure. And third, and this is critical, go into the comments right now and tell me this: would you lead if you knew it would break you? Be honest. No judgment. Just truth. I read every single comment. Now go watch the next story because the lessons never stop and neither do we.